Hey guys, so today I would like to talk a little bit about enmeshment and what it is, what it looks like, and why we maybe want to move away from being so meshed. So enmeshment, it refers to an unhealthy family dynamic that is characterized by over-involvement and blurred boundaries in one another's lives. So the reason why we don't really want to be enmeshed is that it can lead to difficulties in individual autonomy and personal development. So what does that mean? When you are enmeshed within your family dynamic, there is no one person in that enmeshment. There could be one person leading that enmeshment, but really nobody is an individual within that. And if you are lower on the scale of powerful personalities that are enmeshed, the lower on the scale you are, the less individuality and personal growth you're going to have access to. So it can also give us an inability to connect to others who have healthy boundaries as well. So if we are looking at having friendships or other close relationships, or a significant other that has a healthy boundary or a healthy family dynamic, if you are currently enmeshed, then that is going to be really difficult to have a relationship with that person, because it's going to feel so different to the person who has had healthy boundaries, and it's going to feel unhealthy to them. So it really leads to an inability to be yourself and to be the person that you want to be and to have connections that you want to have, because it's not about you, because you as an individual don't exist when there is an enmeshed family dynamic. So again, it can lead to things like lack of autonomy. So identities within enmeshment can become blurred and again, or suppressed. So the lower you are on the scale, the more suppressed your individuality or your autonomy is going to be. The problem with that is then it hinders personal growth and self-discovery. You cannot be an individual because you don't exist as an individual within this dynamic. And this dynamic is your family. And so therefore, if you don't exist as an individual with your family, where do you exist as an individual? You don't. You really have no personal autonomy. It creates a real problem with emotional boundaries. So when you are in an enmeshed situation, there really is no emotional boundaries. They are incredibly poorly defined, if there is even any discussion or thought process around boundaries whatsoever. It can become challenging for some people to express their thoughts, feelings, beliefs, needs, because you can't really have them in that situation, that enmeshment. And if people would want to discuss those things, they're going to find it very difficult to, without feelings of like fear, abandonment, judgment. So either one, you're not really thinking about those things, or two, if you are thinking about those things, it's going to be really hard for you to bring it up or to talk about it or to address it in any real way, because you're going to be so terrified of what happens if I do. So then you just kind of don't. And then the enmeshment just continues going. And again, the higher up you are on the scale within this enmeshment, you may be more likely to have these discussions. But really, if you're higher up on that scale, then chances are you have a little bit more power within the enmeshment, and you then very well may be one of the people driving the enmeshment. So the chances of that person really wanting to have a discussion about what healthy boundaries look like is not going to be super high. Then it leads to massive codependency issues. So codependency is when one or more people two people are relying on one another for validation, for support, and makes it really difficult for either one of them to function independently. So essentially, when there's a codependent relationship, it's two halves of one whole, as opposed to 1 and 1 equals 2. So a healthy relationship would be you as an individual, the other person as an individual, and then you come together to make something new. So a new relationship, or the relationship, but you still exist as each other or as an individual outside of that relationship. When you're codependent, there is no really, you don't exist outside of that relationship. That relationship is your life. When you have an enmeshed relationship with your like family dynamic, again, there's going to be a lot of codependency going on in there because there is no individuality within an enmeshment. So it also is going to inhibit communication. Like I said, there's going to be certain topics that are just avoided because you want to maintain the facade of harmony. So you just don't talk about certain things that you know is going to upset somebody else within that enmeshment, whether it be, because you want to talk about something that you know is a difficult topic for people to discuss. That's one thing. But that's not happening in this relationship, and it doesn't matter regardless of what the topic is. It's just, we don't talk about that. We don't address that. It just doesn't happen because everything's easier if we don't talk about those things. It also creates a real emotional burden. So people within the enmeshment, especially lower on the scale within the enmeshment, may feel very responsible for other people's happiness, other people in general potentially, but especially within the family dynamic, feeling very responsible for other people's happiness or their distress. So if someone is not happy, then I have to make them happy. If they're distressed, then the distress is my fault. So either way, whether they're happy or distressed, somehow the burden is on me to fix the situation. And when you have that happen, it can lead to a real increase in stress levels as well as just emotional exhaustion, to constantly be on the hook to take care of someone else or how someone else is feeling. And you really get no break for yourself because you don't exist as an individual within this enmeshment. Now, that doesn't mean that you can still, live on your own. You can still have independent relationships. So physically, you can have your autonomy. Potentially not though, but potentially you could physically have your autonomy, but it's the emotional connection is really what I'm discussing when I'm talking about enmeshment, is that emotionally, sure, you could be in another house, but emotionally you're still connected to that family dynamic, and you are still going to be responsible for how other people feel. You are still going to be responsible for making other people happy. If they are not happy, then it's going to be your responsibility. It's going to be your fault. And you don't feel like you can really discuss how it impacts you and why it's not working for you. Even if you're aware that it's not working for you, you don't feel like you can discuss that or you can bring it up. And it's just easier to, again, we don't really talk about that. And with no real questioning of, why don't we talk about that though? So that is why we don't want to have an enmeshed family dynamic. It is not healthy. It leads to emotional exhaustion and stress for a lot of people involved. And it can really lead to a lot of abuse, emotional abuse, and abuse of power sometimes, depending on what the enmeshment looks like. So if you are feeling like this is resonating for you, if you're hearing this and going, yeah, okay, I can relate to what she's saying, how do you stop? So what can you do to help break yourself free from the enmeshment? So first of all, self-awareness. So if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, that sounds kind of like what I'm experiencing or what I've experienced, then right off the bat, you're doing great. You are self-aware. So you really want to be self-aware. And this can be a really tricky one because if you're in this family dynamic, you are not being encouraged to be self-aware. And in fact, you're not being encouraged to be self, period, right? You exist for the family dynamic, not for yourself. So if you have the ability to be self-aware and to go, you know what, I can't, I don't know what's happening here, but I don't like it. I don't want to be like this anymore. Then that is a great first step, to really just notice the signs. And again, there's varying degrees of this. There's going to be obviously completely on one side of the scale and then on the other side of the scale. So there's going to be varying degrees to the enmeshment within the family dynamic. And to even notice any of the signs is a great first step. The second step is thinking about boundaries. So in order to break free from this family dynamic, you will need to put up boundaries. There's just no two ways about it. But maybe at this point, you're not ready to do that yet. And that's completely okay. This is a really hard a hard dynamic to break away from, and it can be incredibly scary to do that as well, because again, this is still your family. You probably love them and you don't want to upset them, partly because you don't want to, and then partly because you've been trained to not want to. So even just thinking about the boundaries that you would put in place is a great first step. Of course, then going so far as to put those boundaries in place, but only when you are in a place that you are actually ready to do that. If while you're doing that, focusing on your individuality. So what are the things that you like to do? Who are you as a person? What do you like? What do you think about? What do you feel? What do you value? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? Really focus on like what it means to be you and who you are. And the things that you want more of, include those in your life more. Bring that in more for you. Improve your communication. So we really want to ideally be honest, and not everybody's always going to like the honesty, and that is okay as long as we are being compassionate and empathetic and assertive and just really being effective in our communication. Not everybody has to like what you're going to say, and especially when you're trying to move past an unhealthy family dynamic, the chances are that a lot of people aren't going to like what you have to say. And that's okay, right? As long as you know that what you're doing is the best thing for you and it's the healthy decision, and you're not purposely trying to be vindictive or purposely trying to hurt anybody or anything like that. Not everybody has to like what you're going to say, because you are wanting to be healthy, and not everybody is going to want to be healthy. But improving your communication just in general, including people outside of the enmeshment as well, becoming more assertive, becoming more focused, becoming more clear in what you say and how you say it, is only going to be helpful going forward. Again, emphasizing self-care. So if you have grown up with this family dynamic, which the chances are you probably have, you will have spent so much time focusing on other people that you maybe haven't spent a whole lot of time focusing on yourself just in general, but then especially focusing on taking care of yourself. So increasing your self-care just in general is really important, not only to help you remove yourself slowly from the family dynamic of enmeshment, but to also keep yourself moving and keep yourself going, and really just investing in yourself and in how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world, how you navigate the world, everything like that. And then lastly, you really want to learn to become comfortable with discomfort. So learn to cope with discomfort, because as you try and remove yourself from this dynamic, nothing about it is going to be comfortable. And that doesn't mean that you want to stop doing it. So just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that you should stop doing it. You know, a lot of self-growth and self-improvement comes from a place of being so uncomfortable that you finally go, okay, I want to do something different. But really being able to navigate and remove yourself from this type of a situation, you do have to be at a place where you're like, okay, I know that this is going to suck and I'm probably not going to feel great for a little bit. But once it's all done, I know that this is the best thing for me. And so I'm just going to have to cope with feeling crummy for a little bit, because I know once it's done and once it's over, I'm going to feel so much better. So, you know, taking that short-term really crummy feeling in exchange for the long term of being more healthy emotionally. So if you guys feel like that's helpful, please leave a comment down below, and I will see you on the next video.